Yeah, hi guys, good morning. Hey, today I thought maybe you'd like to take a look at the Camaro that I have behind me. It's my 72 Z-28 with the RS package. It's not the original color. I've had this car for many years. When I had originally picked it up, it was blue with white stripes. Come to find out, at that time that the trim tag showed it as being golden brown with a covert tan, I believe, interior and a covert tan, I think that's how you pronounce it, vinyl roof. And the trim tag also had a DX3, I believe, on it, which was a striped Elite. So that wouldn't have been my ideal package for the car. So, like 14 years ago, I had it painted, and I've always liked the black with the white stripes. 71, you could have gotten that as a factory option with that color package. But I did the next best thing. I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of money on chasing down a 71 with that factory option. So I just had the car repainted, and like I said, it's been about 14 years. So we'll take a look at some of the features and some of the stuff that's not original to the car. Okay, as you can tell, the wheels aren't standard equipment. These are the Krager 390 Street Pros. I always liked these wheels because they had the spinners on them, and I don't know why, but I always liked the spinners on the wheels. So I do have the original Z-28 5-spoke gray wheels with the trim rings that were, as far as I know, original to the car. I've got those stored away. Second item is the hood. I have the original hood. That's also stored away. But just to change things up a little bit, I got an aftermarket steel hood with the power bulge on it. I just kind of like the looks of it. I can always go back. The other one's ready to go. If I want to, I get back to original with the hood. I just kind of like the way this looked a little bit. But I do have the original hood. Okay, the third thing, it's not a big deal, but in 1972, the Z-28 came with a decal on the back spoiler, or on the back of the car. I didn't care for the decal too much, so I've got one of the aftermarket Z-28 emblems. I think it looks a heck of a lot better than the decal. Okay guys, the fourth item that's not original to the car is the 4-speed shifter. After 1971, Chevy got rid of the Hurst shifter and put in an ITM. I don't know, they must have felt it a safety factor, maybe save some money, I don't know. It is, the ITM shifter has a reverse lockout on it, but I'll tell you, that shifter is a nuisance. This car is locked up. That car locked up on me at least 4 times with that ITM in there. And it just felt, you just couldn't slam in the gears. It just felt sloppy. It felt like the linkage rods were bending every time you slammed the shifter in. It wasn't a good feeling. It felt like you could miss a gear. And let me say, just do yourself a favor. If you have an ITM in there in your car, take it out. Put in the Competition Plus Hurst shifter. You won't regret it. It's not that difficult. The installation kit, and you're just not going to regret putting that in. I've kept the original ITM. It's in storage with the other parts, and I don't look back at that at all. So I want to bring to your attention pertaining to these second-generation Camaros, specifically the first 4 years, is the exhaust system. I think you're going to find that the majority of the cars that you come across are going to have an aftermarket exhaust system on it. I wanted to go with the original look, and you see this so seldom. And the particular dual exhaust that was on the original cars, the tips of the tailpipes were turned in, and I'm going to try to show it to you on this car. I think the tailpipes on the 70 and 71 were chromed, and there's some debate of whether they were chromed on the 72 or if they were just a standard tailpipe galvanized. So I want to show you, if I can here, this might be a little tricky, but we're going to take a look at the exhaust on my car. You can see how close they hug the back of the body of the car. They're not really that visible. The aftermarket exhaust that you see, I mean, they're hanging down. They don't look right. They don't blend in with the car. With the toe-in pipes, they just pretty much follow the contour of the car back. You'll notice distinctly when you're behind one and you can see the toe-in of the pipes. I know I can't really get a good shot here, but maybe from there you could tell how they toe in, and they look, to me, they look fantastic. I was at a show a couple of years ago, and I must have had a half a dozen guys crawl under the car because they hadn't seen one of those exhaust systems before. And that's how it looked originally. So, Gardner Exhaust, I don't know if they have the licensing from GM or whatever, but that's where I got this exhaust system from, Gardner Exhaust. And it wasn't cheap, but I just love the look of it. And so when you're standing behind this car, with the muffler that they have, the car just burbles. And then, like I say, with that solid lifter engine, it's combined with that metallic sound, and it's just awesome. With it being a 350 engine, unlike my 454 LS6 that I had, it's a little subdued compared to the Chevelle, but still, it's just a beautiful sound. Another thing you may want to consider is the type of engine you want in the car. If you want the highest performance engine that was available for that second generation, then you want the 1970 model. They had the 360 horsepower, 11-to-1 compression ratio engine. After 70, I think they reduced it to 9-to-1, mine's 9-to-1 compression. And then after 72, and here's the big thing for me, they went to hydraulic lifters in 1973. So there you could get air conditioning. So 70, 71, 72, watch to make sure there's no additional air conditioning vents in your car. Any telltale signs of brackets or anything that would indicate that that car had air conditioning. If it did, then you probably don't have a Z-28. Now, getting back to the solid lifters, I wanted that. That was important to me. Back in 1972, I bought a 70 Chevelle SS with the LS6 engine in it. That was a solid lifter car. I'll tell you, there's nothing as sweet sounding as a solid lifter's ticking. And then you go behind to the exhaust and just hear that metallic sound in conjunction with that V8 sound. And it's like music. It's like you almost don't have to take Viagra. It's just, I never heard anything sweeter for me as an engine sound than those GM engines with the solid lifters. So you may want to consider that. Like I said, they did away with that after 1972. And the horsepower is another factor. I mean, it was 360 horsepower in 70, and then it was 330 horsepower, I think, in 71. Then they changed the ratings from gross horsepower to net. So in 1972, it was 255 horsepower net, but really there was only a 10 horsepower reduction from 71. So if you factor, I'm thinking, unless I'm thinking this wrong, you factor back to your gross, and it should have been around 320 horsepower. So it's something else to consider, is what engine would you like in that car? There are a few pieces of trim in the engine compartment that I've changed out to chrome. Not too many, but I just added a little bit. I still have the original parts in black, and that goes on pretty easily. Okay, I think I got a shot here of the trim tag, which is on the cowl under the hood, and I think if you look hard enough you can see where it's stamped Z-28, and you can also see the DX3 code and the 57, which I think is the paint code, and the T I think indicates your vinyl roof. And on the left side I think it might indicate TR779, and that would be your interior color. And of course the car does not have any trace of those colors anymore. Okay guys, if you're shopping around for a second generation car, a Camaro, I say the first 4 years, 70, 71, 72, 73, is maybe what you want to concentrate on. Those are the round taillight, chrome bumper cars, and maybe you want to concentrate basically on 70, 71, and then 72, and then finally 73. They're getting harder and harder to find in original conditions. They've been so modified over the years. People butcher them, they put different engines in. There's so much that you gotta be real careful about when you're trying to find something that's got some originality left. If you buy a 72, there are two things to look out for. Number one, the car is definitely, I think they are all built in Norwood, Ohio. So on the trim tag, on the cowl, you'll see Z-28 stamped on there. That's one good thing. The second good thing is your VIN number. That fifth digit is very important. If there is an L in the fifth digit position, that indicates the 350 Z-28 engine code. There, you're probably pretty good if you got both of those items. The stamped Z-28 on the trim tag and the L code on the VIN code. It's still no guarantee of anything, but that's two things to look for. There's a third item that always seems to have a bunch of controversy, and that's the gas pedal. In 70 and 71, the gas pedal was mounted near the floorboard, hinged at that position. Another thing to look for if you're trying to identify a Z-28 within the first 4 years of the Generation 2. 1970 and 1971, the gas pedal was mounted and hinged basically on the floor pan of the car. The support for the rod was still on the firewall, which gave you your movement, but it was actually a long pedal that was hinged at the bottom, like I say, on the floor pan. Now, a lot of guys think that that carried over into 1972. However, my car does not have that arrangement. It is the short pedal, just supported off the main bracket that's on the firewall, and that's it. It's like they eliminated that long pedal and they didn't have to put that hinge part down on the floor pan. Now it goes both ways. Some guys say, oh, your 72 is supposed to have it, and other guys say, no, 72 doesn't have it. Mine doesn't have it, and I really think the 73s don't have it either. So just be on the lookout. If you're looking for a 70 or 71, you want to make sure of that pedal mount. 72, I don't know, it's still a gray area. All I know is mine isn't mounted that way. It is the shorter pedal. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's the gas pedal. And like I said, on the 70 and 71, that would have been a longer pedal, and it would have extended down and actually fastened to the floor pan right about in there. And I'll just give you a shot of the the dashboard. You know, I'll tell you what, it's one of my favorite designs. I've always liked the layout and the style of that dash panel. The other thing I like too, reason I like the 71s and the 2s is I like the high back bucket seats. In 70, and I had a 70 at one time, the low back buckets, they just weren't very comfortable. These are a lot more comfortable. Notice back then how thin the A-pillars were compared to the new Camaros today, or many of the other new cars, not just the Camaros, how thick and wide they are now versus what they were back in the 60s and 70s. When looking for these cars, another thing you may want to keep an eye on is stress cracks. And the one area that can get these stress cracks more than any others is where the sail panel meets the roof. And I'm kind of talking about right in this area. This is prone to stress cracks. I'll tell you why. Because this car only utilizes a subframe. It doesn't have a full perimeter frame or anything like that. So the subframe basically cradles the engine and transmission, handles the suspension and wheels up front. Then it ends right about there. Your back suspension, what framing there is kind of attached to your floorboards. So there's a big gap in between the subframe where that ends and where the framing is in the back end of the car. A lot of guys, and there's aftermarket subframe connectors, you may want to consider getting those to connect up, either welded or bolt-on. If we take a look at this cutaway view, you can see here where the front subframe ends, and back here, it's kind of hard to tell, but the end of this framing is kind of attached up into your floorboard. So you have this big gap that's wide open here between them. So what happens, because you don't have a real solid continuous frame, the body is open towards torsional twists, especially if you have a more powerful engine that was in the Z-28 or the Super Sport. You know, a lot of guys get on the car, they kind of beat it a little bit, and that body can actually twist. And in that case, you can develop the stress cracks. So keep in mind when you're looking for a car, and if you start to see those stress cracks up around that area, between the sail panel and the roof, just think to yourself, this car, you know, has seen some heavy duty. Just to keep in mind. Okay. Okay guys, so if you're still chasing down that dream of a first generation Camaro, particularly a 69, maybe you should take a second look at one of these second generation cars. I think they're going to increase in value, and right now they could probably save you some money over what that 69 would cost. Talk to you next time.